Hello and welcome to the CET CXO Connect series. I'm your host Anup John from CET 2001 batch. We are conducting this series to have entrepreneurs share their inspiring stories with our audience and motivate a new generation of entrepreneurs. We have here with us Deepa Kartha from 1993 Computer Science batch. Deepa is a founder and CEO of Zinda.xyz, a Chicago-based startup looking to transform the way people are engaged in companies. Journeys from Zinda is a web and mobile platform to rally employees around strategic initiatives to act as one. Welcome, Deepa, to the show.
Thanks, Anup. Great to be here.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your life after CET, and your entrepreneurial journey?
Oh, absolutely. As you mentioned, I finished CET in 1993. I was actually campus recruited to Larsen & Toubro, worked there for about a year, and managed to just do training for about 10 months, and then actually moved to the US after that. So I got married and moved to the US. I worked for a consulting company for about 3 years. Then I joined big banks for about 20 years. So for about 20 years, I was with HSBC, Capital One, a slew of big banks in their financial technology space. And about 3 years ago, I decided to start my company.
It's been a long time since you left CET.
Long time.
We have something interesting that you remember about CET?
Interesting about CET. I think the thing that it's actually been such a long time ago that I actually have forgotten a lot of things. But I think the thing that really that I remember is really the not what happened in CET, but what actually happened a year ago when we did our 25th year reunion. I imagine I could feel the same sense of friendship and the camaraderie that I felt at CET, and I'd forgotten all about it. And last year when we met our team at Colum, it felt exactly the same. So what I remember about CET is really the feeling, the experience, rather than any specific, any specific kind of incident or anything like that.
Yeah, I think it's something that a lot of alumni shares. People tend to have a very strong relationship with the kind of students that come out of CET, and it's good to know that people still have that passion and that levels of friendship with their friends.
Absolutely, and WhatsApp helped quite a bit.
Yeah,
because we had a WhatsApp group that started about 3 years ago. Till that point of time, I think a lot of us were not too much in touch with the group. But once the WhatsApp group started, it's almost as if the years just didn't pass by at all. The same old jokes, the same kind of interactions. It's nice. It's funny, but it's nice.
So other than the last year's reunion, have you been visiting CET, traveling to Trivandrum?
A little bit. So after initially I've gone back there a couple of times, but after that it was kind of hard, right? I mean, after 3, 4, 5 years, then you don't have the same kind of connections anymore because the people change, and the relationship with CET is not with the buildings, right? It's with people. So so it feels completely different, and then it's not the same kind of feeling where you go back. And it's a good thing now that there is a lot of activity with the alumni organization, because now you can connect back to the people that you had, these experiences with, and you can reconnect and make new friends. This is a good thing that is happening right now with the alumni group.
So if you look back, right? So 4 years that you spent at CET, and it has been almost 20 years after, or 25 years after that, or 20 years rather, right? Since when you started your company. So is there something that you think CET has helped you in preparing your life as an entrepreneur? Something.
I guess the unexpected. You would go into CET every day and you have no idea what to expect from the next corner or from from your classes or whatever. But honestly, when you're thinking about your life at engineering college, it was, and maybe things are a little different now, but at that time, the way we were taught and everything was so totally different, right? So I cannot say, so the one thing that I can say is for sure is this, which is, once I started my company, I would say that for about 20 years, I had pretty much limited interaction with Malayalis. But once I started my company, every single person that I interact with for some reason is a Malayali. I don't even know why. So I'm actually working with a friend of mine. His team is the one who's doing the development for us. Then I'm, some of my friends are actually piloting the products out. I got a lot of feedback from my friends. So from that perspective, there is a lot of, after I started my company for sure, there is a lot of interaction with people from CET.
That's good. So now that you've mentioned about your company, right? We'd also want, can you tell us a little bit more about your business? Your business also has something to do with the idea of engagement, and all of what we are talking about is all around engagement. So
Right.
can you tell us a little bit more about your business?
Absolutely. So when I, in my career, I always had two hats. I had a people hat where I was responsible for teams and departments and things like that. And I had a hat where I was responsible for strategic initiatives of companies, right? So this could be, lead for merger and acquisition, or, a new product launch, a new partner launch, etc. So one of the things that I spent a lot of my time was to make sure that, because in companies right now, there are constant changes that are happening, right? And how do you make these changes successful? By really rallying people around them. And then also, how do you make sure that the people who are involved in it are feeling happy, fulfilled, productive at the end of it? So this is something that I've always had a big passion for in my career. So that's why when I started my company about 3.5 years ago, I wanted to build a product that actually kind of combined a lot of the people, process, technology, and combine it together with data to create both engagement and results. So because, a lot of times we say engagement, but what does engagement even mean, right? Does engagement mean people are reading it, or they're participating? What does that even mean? So my company is really all about engaging people around strategic initiatives and showing the results immediately. So that is how, that is where the idea of the product was born. And as we went through our pilot for close to 1.5 years, we tested and proved the product out with various companies, various teams, and a lot of CET folks as well. We even used it for our 25th year reunion. A bunch of things with that.
That's
We used it for that. So yeah.
I also believe that you are trying to do something with the platform with women from CET, women entrepreneurs, or just women alumni from CET?
Yeah, so we have a women CET women's group. Right now it's on WhatsApp. And, we were using it for a bit for, running contests and things like that, kind of getting to know each other, those kind of things. And we're actually talking about maybe, using something like that from a more structured kind of format. We're still dabbling at that and looking at it, but yeah.
This is not necessarily a new space, right? So there are other products in the market. So how do you differentiate your product from these other products that are out there in the market?
Yeah, absolutely. So typically when you have other products in the market, they focus on something, right? So you're focused on communication or collaboration or polls or surveys or something very specific. So typically they are point solutions, right? Here is Slack, and you can use it to get rid of email, right? Or here is Yammer, where you can actually use it to for chats. Or here, so everything is a very point solution. And how Journeys is different is that Journeys actually can be used to create custom playbooks and customize it very specifically to what you're looking to do. So for example, I was working at Capital One, and a big strategic initiative used to be, we want to change banking for good. Okay, so now the question is, how do you make sure that people understand what that means? How do you make sure that you get people's feedback around it? How do you make sure that maybe you run some challenges and things like that, for people all over Capital One? How do you make sure that you do recognition around it? So now you can customize it very specifically, create workflows to solve the problem of how to change banking for good. So that is really the biggest difference between us and some of the other competitors that are out there, because the competitors might be more of, hey, here is a platform, use it. And what we do is to say, here is a platform, and here is how you can customize it and parameterize it to use it for what you want now. You want something, again, 2 months from now, change it to something else. And it's very easy to change. It's very intuitive. So changing it is not a big deal at all.
Is that part of your positioning in terms of your unique positioning to solve this engagement problem? So how do you see that?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So the engagement, uh, I mean, engagement is an interesting word, right? Because when you say engagement, it actually misses the whole point of what is it for, right? What is the purpose of engagement? You don't engage for the purpose of, when you think engagement, it's like, oh, here is a beer fridge or here is team events and all of that kind of stuff. That is just one piece of it, which is how do you rally people, right? That is just the people piece of it. The second part of it is really the process piece of it, which is all about, hey, you just look at the results. How about what do you need to do to get the results that you want? Focus on the inputs and the outputs and make the technology really simple. And how can you use data to really make a difference, right? And because, some of the customers that we have, so it was one of the examples is engaging people around sales. But the result of that engagement is that the sales productivity doubles. So, it actually goes directly to the top line, to the bottom line. But when you say engagement, it's like, oh, here is this, gooey thing. And what's the ROI of that, right? So that's the reason why it's kind of, I'm trying to figure out a word to say other than engagement, but haven't yet, figured it out other than saying 15 words,
Yeah, and then businesses are going to ask you exactly that question that you mentioned. Right? What is ROI? What is in it for them? What is it? Is there some visibility on that?
Oh, absolutely, right? Because the way we look at it is that it is all about, hey, if changing banking for good is important, somebody decided that change banking for good is important, right? Somebody decided that. So now if you're able to show more people are getting involved in those initiatives, you're getting more ideas out of it, you're getting more results out of it, you're changing the behavior so that you're seeing the results happen in all of these places. That is the ROI. So we actually focus on the input and the output, right? So the input, which is what do you need to do to get the results that you want? And also, by the way, look at the results too. So yeah, it is absolutely, the ROI is very straightforward because we don't look at, we look at something that is important for the company. They chose it because it is important. They chose it because they thought there is ROI in it. So now that you know what that is, you can actually look at the inputs and the outputs and figure out how to rally people around that.
It's good to know. So I believe you have taken on a very interesting problem of not just businesses. I think from a community perspective also, right? I think it's an extremely important piece to make people engage, not just throw some propositions at people and expect that or hope that they're going to engage.
Right. Yeah. Right. And the hardest part really is, from an organizer perspective or from a leader perspective, for them it is important. But the only way you can get people engaged is they themselves have to feel it. They have to be the owners of it, right? So, when you look at like social media or your Fitbit and things like that, the reason why people use it is because they want to use it, not because somebody else asked them to use it. So it's really all of these psychological factors, which we use, social and gamification and all of that influence some of those pieces, plus a lot of the accountability factors. You have to put in a lot of things to really make it happen. It's a complicated topic, Human motivation is a complicated topic, right?
Yeah. So talking about motivation, right? It would be great to hear your thoughts on some. So based on your entrepreneurial journey so far, right? Maybe how do you see people being motivated to do something on their own, right? What are 3 skills that they would want to have or want to build if they plan to do something on their own, right? What would be those?
I would say before the skills, the first thing is the desire, because it is so easy to not do it, so because typically it's like you say that necessity is the mother of invention, right? I mean, there has to be some kind of a trigger that makes people want to do that. It's either that there's such a great opportunity that they just cannot, they cannot miss it, or, something happened in their life because they're like, hey, I have to go do something else because something happened in their lives. So there has to be some kind of a trigger, because the alternative is easier, honestly, because, for me, it took me a long time to figure out that I was an entrepreneur, because I was very sure that I was going to be in a large corporation, Fortune 500, be happy there. That was what I thought. Till, it actually got to a point where I said, hey, I cannot stand going into work and doing the same thing over and over again, having the same issues, not being able to resolve it, and getting frustrated. That is what made me want to become an entrepreneur. So the first thing is the desire, right? And after the desire, there was really no skill. It is because it's all, as an entrepreneur, you're the salesperson, you're the product person, you're everything, right? You're the cook and the bottle washer, you're everything. So so the one skill that you probably don't want to lose is your ability to kind of push your sleeves up and get to work. Because as you go higher up in an organization, I was getting so used to having my admin do stuff. It's like, oh, set this meeting up, do that, so it's so easy to do that. And then once I started, it's like, man, I'm the admin. I'm supposed to do everything, right? So that's I would say that is one skill that you don't lose, which is the ability to just jump in and figure things out on your own. Apart from that, I think so that, and then the ability to constantly learn, because you're learning every single day, right? And you have to learn every single day for you to survive. And the third thing is, if you're able to figure out a way to keep going, which is focus on yourself, so that you are able to be grounded and have the support that you need to keep going, right? So probably those are all the things that you need once you make a decision that yes, you want to be an entrepreneur.
So it's a desire, a willingness to do anything, continue to learn, and your persistence with what you're trying to do, right?
Yeah. And if you're an optimist, much better.
So I'm sure things have changed since you got out of college in terms of how people start looking at the idea of starting something on their own. Right now, there is a larger percentage of students who are looking to start businesses or startups right out of college.
Absolutely.
What would be your advice in addition to these 4 points that you mentioned earlier? Right? What would you want to tell these students?
I would say that, one of the things that I'm hearing now is that, the percentage of companies that become successful, because usually you think about like, somebody like Mark Zuckerberg or whatever, right? People that are like right out of college starting a company and then it became super successful. The number of companies that do that is very, very, very small, right? So I would say one of the first things would be to learn under somebody who's smart. Learn first under somebody who's smart, so that, again, because there is so much that you have to learn as an entrepreneur. You might get lucky and you might have the right planets aligned and everything happen. But my recommendation would be to go work at a place that has a lot of smart people. Learn first before they jump into entrepreneurship. Unless, again, they meet one of this criteria. They're like, I cannot even think about going and working somewhere else, right? I found this idea that's going to change the world, right? Or something like that. Unless there is something that is so compelling, doing it for the sake of doing it, I would not recommend, but
So that's interesting, right? So you recommend people to go out and start in probably startups, right? Startups where they can get a lot of experience in how you do some of the things.
Startups are, bigger companies, entrepreneurial companies. Yeah.
Okay. All right, that's interesting. And I'm sure one of the struggles that people would run into when they start businesses is not about the idea or the product, right? What do you do when things start going wrong, right? That is when the business really gets tested. That is when the person gets tested, right? So can you share some thoughts on some of the challenges that you have faced and some of the lessons that you have learned, so people do not have to learn the same lesson going through the same challenge?
Unfortunately, everybody has to learn the same lesson on their own. no matter what you say, human beings have a tendency to learn the lesson on their own, right? I mean, who listens to advice anyway, right? But going back to, things that could go wrong, it's not necessarily things that, there could be things that could go wrong. You're running out of money. Your customer has this, there is a big problem with your product, or your customer is like all of a sudden said, hey, I don't want this thing anymore. So there are anything that could happen. And, it doesn't really matter what the issue is. I think it really comes back to to the point of how you react to it, right? Because things are going to be you're going to be constantly bombarded with things. You're going to be working really long hours. It's going to be highly stressful situation, right? I think everything has to do with your think about it as, hey, I have to go through 15 bad things to get to a success, and when a bad thing happens, it's like, okay, good, I got number 2 out of the way. Another, just expect that there is going to be things that might happen. So and then instead of reacting to it or responding to it in a in a negative manner, kind of see if you can ground yourself, take a deep breath and figure out, okay, what is really wrong and what can we do to fix it. Because it's not something that, again, people have to learn this on their own, and that is where working with somebody who's got the experience and who's got the smarts is going to be very helpful, because they can actually look at people who are who are dealing with this. So, for example, there was this guy in military that I was working with, and he was the chief of staff to a general. Okay, so he's like, even though he wasn't the one who was dealing with the situation, he's like, I saw so many situations where I saw really great people how they responded, and that kind of gave him the benefit of, okay, I know how to respond when some of these things happen in my entrepreneurial life. So that's why it's all about how you respond to it, because there are enough opportunities in this world. There is enough there's enough room for everybody here. You just need to realize that and respond accordingly.
Stay grounded, do not give up, continue to focus on what you need to get done and walk through the problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Would also be good to have some thoughts that about how you think we as entrepreneurs from the alumni community can help CET and potential entrepreneurs from CET. How do you think we should organize ourselves better in that perspective?
Yeah, I think as we were talking about earlier, right? I mean, CET is just forming that whole alumni. Although the alumni group was there always, right? It is, I think it is, probably there was a small group of people that was getting involved. Now I think there is a larger group of people that is getting involved. So the first part of it is really good. There is more people that are part of the mix now. I think probably the next thing is just from you mentioned creating a community, right? So to create a community, again, you have to answer the question, what's in it for everybody involved, right? So it has to be a portion of, what can we as entrepreneurs help, help the students with, what kind of help does the students need, and then, really answer the question of, how can we help, and really, really even what's in it for us, right? What's in it for us, not from a what do you call that, from a financial perspective, but human beings, I think in general, like helping other people, right? So this is, so having somebody to mentor, I think is something that people would find fulfilling, even in the entrepreneur groups, right? So I think it's really to kind of, figure out, creating the community and figuring out what the, the rules of engagement is, and then proceed with that.
Interesting. So you think that there is a very strong opportunity for us, even with the simple idea of helping people back, both within the college and also, I'm sure there are a lot of alumni out there who are looking to start ventures on their own, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it is going to be, my feeling is that it's going to be more people that are outside that need the conversation and the help rather than students, because I know that things are different from when I go to college, but at that point of time, most people are just looking for a job, right? Looking for a job. That was, you're starting your life, that's what you're trying to do. And I know that this time when I went to the college, it was like, wow, who are these students, where are they? I was just so thoroughly impressed with them. And I did have a few conversations with a couple of people who actually wanted to start a company and all of that. So I know that there are some people who are interested, but I think, definitely people who are graduated, I think there is more of a need there, is my guess.
All right. So that is an interesting insight. So let us focus on one thing to start with, right? In terms of trying to help people who are already trying to look out for opportunities like this. I would like to thank you for your time for today's talk, and wish you all the very best in your journey with journeys. Thank you once again, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you.